Have you ever counted them? The number of times in a single day that the words "I'm sorry" leave your lips. You say it when you bump into someone. You say it when you need to ask a question. You say it when you disagree, cushioning your own thoughts with a pathetic preamble, "I'm sorry, but I think." You apologize for taking up space, for having an opinion, for needing a moment of someone's time. You apologize for being late, for being early, for being tired, for being human. This stream of apologies has become a tick, a reflex, a background noise to your own existence. And you've been taught to see it as a virtue. Politeness. Humility. Social grace. You've been told that it keeps the peace, that it shows you are considerate, that it makes you a good person. But what if I told you that this is the greatest lie you've ever been sold? What if I told you that every time you utter an unnecessary apology, you are performing a ritual of self-mutilation? That you are willingly placing a chain around your own neck and handing the other end to the world? What if your politeness is not politeness at all, but a symptom of a deep, spiritual sickness? A sickness of the will. Friedrich Nietzsche, the philosopher who took a hammer to every comfortable belief of the modern world, saw this sickness with terrifying clarity. He understood that the constant need to apologize, to justify one's own existence, is not a sign of a civilized soul, but of a domesticated one. A soul that has been tamed, neutered, and taught to fear its own power. He saw that apology is the language of the weak, the prayer of the slave who begs the master not to be punished for simply existing. This video is not about being rude. It is not an encouragement for you to become a monster of arrogance. No. This is far more dangerous. This is a call to stop being a ghost. It is a guide to killing the apologetic spirit that has been injected into your veins since birth. It is an invitation to embrace a philosophy of dominance, not the petty dominance over others, but the absolute, terrifying dominance over yourself, your space, and your own reality. If you are tired of shrinking, if you feel that knot of resentment in your stomach every time you apologize for something that requires no apology, if you are ready to stand up straight, take up your space, and breathe the air as if you have a right to it, then stay. Because we are about to dissect the anatomy of sorry, and once you see what it truly is, you will never be able to say it in the same way again. The path is brutal. It is lonely. And it will force you to burn the person you thought you were. But on the other side of that fire is not a better person. It is a sovereign one. Why do you apologize? Let's be honest. Brutally honest. The last time you said "I'm sorry" when you didn't really do anything wrong, what was the feeling behind it? Was it a genuine expression of remorse? Or was it fear? Fear of the other person's reaction. Fear of creating conflict. Fear of being seen as difficult, demanding, or selfish. It was a preemptive surrender. A small offering of your own dignity to appease a God you can't even see, the God of social approval. You believe you are choosing to be polite. You are not. You are reacting. You are a puppet dancing on the strings of social conditioning. Nietzsche identified the source of this impulse with a concept that is central to his entire philosophy, the slave morality. Imagine two types of people. The first is the master, the noble. This being looks at the world and sees their own strength reflected in it. They create their own values. What is good for them is what is strong, powerful, life-affirming, and true to their own nature. What is bad is what is weak, pathetic, and cowardly. Their morality flows outward from a position of power. They do not ask for permission. They act. Now, imagine the second type, the slave. The weak, the oppressed, the resentful. They are unable to act with the same power. They cannot shape the world in their image. So what do? They perform a miracle of psychological vengeance. They cannot be strong, so they declare strength to be evil. They cannot be proud, so they declare pride to be a sin. They cannot exact revenge, so they preach forgiveness. They are weak, so they elevate meekness, humility, and pity into the ultimate virtues. This, Nietzsche declared, is the slave morality. A brilliant, insidious system created by the powerless to restrain the powerful. It is a moral code born not from strength, but from ressentiment, a French word he used to describe a deep, simmering stew of impotence, envy, and hatred for those who possess the power you lack. And what is the most common, most practiced ritual of this slave morality? The apology. Every time you say, "I'm sorry for bothering you," you are affirming the slave value that your needs are a bother. You are saying that the other person's time is inherently more valuable than your own impulse. Every time you say, "I'm sorry," but before stating your opinion, you are reinforcing the slave value that dissent is dangerous, that your truth must be softened and presented with a bowed head, lest it offend the master. You are apologizing for the crime of having a spine. This is the sickness. You have been infected with a morality that teaches you to see your own life force as something to be ashamed of. Your ambition is called greed. Your confidence is called arrogance. Your boundaries are called selfishness. And your refusal to bow down is called being difficult. The entire system is designed to make you feel guilty for being powerful. And guilt demands an apology. So you apologize. You apologize for wanting more, for being more, for seeing more. You apologize to keep the peace, but the peace you are keeping is the peace of the prison yard. It is the quiet submission of the tamed animal. Nietzsche would look at this and not see a good person. He would see a tragedy. A lion that has been convinced it is a lamb, and worse, a lion that now bleats with pride at its own meekness. In the next part, we will explore how this machine of guilt is built, not just within you, but around you. We will look at the architecture of the cage you call society, and how it has been meticulously designed to engineer your submission from the moment you were born. Because to break free, you must first understand the blueprints of your prison. You were not born apologetic. A child does not apologize for crying when it is hungry. A child does not apologize for wanting to be held. It demands. It affirms its will with a purity that we, as adults, have been taught to fear and condemn. So what happened? Where did that raw, unapologetic life force go? It was conditioned out of you. Slowly. Methodically. Brutally. Welcome to the guilt machine. Its assembly line begins in your childhood. You were told to be nice. You were told to share, even when you didn't want to. You were told don't be selfish. Each of these commands, disguised as moral instruction, was a small hammer tap, shaping you, bending you, weakening your natural will. You were taught that your own desires, if they conflicted with the desires of others, were inherently wrong. You learned that the path to love and approval was through self-denial. Then came school, another factory in the machine. You were taught to sit still, to be quiet, to raise your hand and wait for permission to speak. Conformity was rewarded, originality was often seen as disruptive. You were measured by your ability to follow rules, not to create them. The message was clear: your value lies in your obedience. Your existence is conditional upon your ability to fit into a pre-existing system. By the time you reach adulthood, the machine has done its work. You are a finely tuned instrument of apology. You enter the workplace and apologize for asking for the salary you deserve. You enter relationships and apologize for having needs that might inconvenience your partner. You navigate the world not as a sovereign being, but as a guest in someone else's house, terrified of breaking the rules and being thrown out. This conditioning makes you the perfect prey. Manipulators, narcissists, and emotional vampires can smell an apologetic soul from a mile away. They know you are an easy target. They know that your default setting is guilt. They will create a problem and then watch as you apologize for it. They will cross your boundaries and then, when you finally protest, they will masterfully twist the situation until you feel guilty for even having a boundary in the first place. You find yourself apologizing for their bad behavior. You apologize for their anger. You apologize for their disappointment. You have become an emotional janitor, constantly cleaning up the messes of others, believing it is your duty. Nietzsche called this process taming. The taming of the human animal. And what does a tamer do? He breaks the animal spirit. He makes it fear the whip, but more importantly, he makes it love the cage. You have been taught to love your cage. You call it safety, stability, harmony. Nietzsche would call it what it is, a slow death. To escape this requires more than just a change in behavior. It requires a revolution of the soul. Nietzsche called it the revaluation of all values. It means you must look at everything society has labeled good and have the courage to call it bad. And everything it has labeled bad and have the courage to call it good. Humility? You must see it as a disguised weakness. Forgiveness, when it means absolving the unrepentant. A cowardly refusal to hold others accountable. Being nice? An insipid mask for the fear of being real. And what about the bad values? Pride? That is the sign of a soul that knows its own worth. Ambition? The fire of the will to power expressing itself. Selfishness? An honest affirmation that your life, your goals, your well-being are your primary responsibility. To be selfish, in the Nietzschean sense, is not to harm others, but to refuse to be sacrificed for them. This revaluation is a declaration of war on the guilt machine. It is you, standing in the middle of the factory, and pulling the emergency brake. The noise will be deafening. The machine will fight back. People will call you mad. They will call you a monster. But for the first time, the silence that follows will be the sound of your own freedom. Now that we have dismantled the machine, it is time to build something new in its place. In the next part, we will harness Nietzsche's most formidable concept, the will to power, and transform it from a philosophical idea into a practical weapon. A weapon to affirm, never to apologize. What do you want? Right now, in this moment. What does your deepest self desire? Not what you think you should want. Not what would make your parents proud or your friends approve. What is the raw, unvarnished, primal drive within you? The desire for more life, more strength, more freedom, more expression. That drive, according to Nietzsche, has a name, the will to power. This is perhaps his most misunderstood concept. The herd, the slave morality, hears the word power and immediately thinks of tyranny, oppression, and brutal domination over others. This is a deliberate misinterpretation, a way for the weak to demonize the very thing they lack. The will to power is not primarily about controlling other people. It is the fundamental, intrinsic drive of all existence to expand its own sphere of influence, to overcome resistance, to grow, to discharge its strength, and to become more than it is. A tree sending its roots deeper into the earth is expressing its will to power. An artist struggling to bring a vision into reality is expressing their will to power. You, striving to overcome your limitations and build a stronger mind, are expressing your will to power. It is the engine of life itself. And your entire being, your thoughts, your desires, your ambitions, is an expression of this will. Now, think about this. If your very existence is an expression of the will to power, what does it mean to apologize for it? To apologize for your opinion is to say that your will to think is illegitimate. To apologize for your ambition is to say that your will to grow is shameful. To apologize for your desires is to say that your will to live is an inconvenience. An apology, in this context, is an act of treason against your own life force. It is a retraction of your power. It is you actively working against the most fundamental drive of your own being. It is a form of spiritual suicide, one small dose at a time. The antidote, therefore, is not a mere absence of apology. It is its polar opposite, affirmation. To affirm is to act in alignment with your will to power. It is to state your reality, your desires, and your boundaries as simple facts, not as requests needing approval. This is where the philosophy becomes brutally practical. It is time to re-engineer your language, to rip the apologetic wiring out of your vocabulary and replace it with the steel of affirmation. You must stop saying, "I'm sorry, I can't make it." The affirmation is, "I will not be there." The first is a plea for forgiveness. The second is a statement of will. It is final. It is solid. It requires no further explanation. You must stop saying, "I'm sorry if this comes across as rude," but the affirmation is, "Here is the reality of the situation." You remove the filter of fear. You present your perception directly, without begging the other person to be comfortable with it. You must stop saying, "Sorry to bother you." Your need is not a bother. It is a need. The affirmation is a direct question or a direct statement, I require a moment of your time. Or simply, you speak. You act as if you have a right to the space you occupy. This will feel unnatural. It will feel abrasive. Everything in your conditioned mind will scream that you are being an arrogant monster. That is the slave morality dying. Let it scream. Your task is to endure the discomfort. Your task is to practice the language of power until it becomes your native tongue. This is not about being aggressive. Aggression is often a sign of weakness, a desperate display from someone who fears they are not being heard. Affirmation is calm. It is centered. It is the quiet, unshakable confidence of a mountain. A mountain does not apologize for its size. It does not apologize for the shadows it casts. It simply is. Your presence in the world must become like that of a mountain. And when you begin to embody this, you will notice a change in the world around you. People will stop trying to push you. Manipulators will retreat because their primary weapon, your guilt, has been rendered useless. You will begin to radiate an energy that commands respect, not because you demand it, but because you no longer beg for its opposite. This energy, this unapologetic presence, is the sound of sovereignty. In the next part, we will explore the profound psychological impact this new presence has on others, and why this quiet dominance is infinitely more powerful than the loudest shout. There is a silence that is more powerful than any word. A stillness that is more intimidating than any threat. It is the silence of the person who has stopped apologizing for their existence. It is the sound of sovereignty. When you walk into a room no longer leaking apologies, no longer hunched in preemptive submission, something in the very air changes. You are not loud. You are not aggressive. You are not trying to be the center of attention. But you are solid. Your energy is no longer porous, seeking validation and approval from every glance. It is contained. It is self-possessed. And this, to the average person, is deeply unsettling. Why? Because your unapologetic presence acts as a mirror. And in that mirror, others are forced to see their own lack. They see their own neediness, their own desperate dance for approval, their own habit of shrinking. Your strength does not comfort them, it exposes their weakness, and they will hate you for it. This is a critical test on the path. People will react to your newfound sovereignty in predictable ways. First comes the confusion. They are used to a certain dynamic with you, a dynamic where you are the accommodating one, the peacekeeper. When you stop playing that role, they don't know the new rules. They will test you, poking you with small provocations or guilt trips, trying to get the old, apologetic you to resurface. They need you to return to your cage so they can feel comfortable in theirs. When that fails, the accusations begin. You've changed. You've become arrogant, cold, selfish. Listen closely to these words. They are the vocabulary of the slave morality. They are the labels the herd uses to punish anyone who dares to walk their own path. They are not describing you, they are describing their fear of you. Your refusal to apologize for your own being is an act of rebellion that threatens their entire worldview. A world where someone can be powerful without being evil is a world they cannot comprehend. This is the point where most people break. The social pressure, the fear of isolation, the pain of being misunderstood, it becomes too much. They rush to apologize for their strength. They say, no, I'm not arrogant, I'm still the same old me. And in that moment, they lose. They crawl back into the cage, and the door slams shut behind them. The sovereign individual, the one Nietzsche called the Übermensch or Overman, endures this. They understand that this alienation is the necessary price of freedom. They do not seek conflict, but they do not sacrifice their integrity to avoid it. Their presence becomes a passive form of dominance. Think of it. The person who constantly needs to explain themselves, to justify their actions, to apologize for their impact, they are in a position of weakness. They are perpetually on the defensive. The person who is unapologetically themselves forces everyone else to react to them. They set the frame. They define the terms of the engagement simply by being. Their sovereignty is not in what they say, but in what they no longer need to say. They no longer need to say, "I deserve respect," because their bearing makes disrespect unthinkable. They no longer need to say, "These are my boundaries," because their presence is a boundary. They no longer need to say, "I am valuable," because they have stopped offering discounts on their own soul. This is the true philosophy of dominance. It is not the brutish force of a tyrant who rules through fear. It is the gravitational force of a star that rules by its own light and mass. It bends the space around it without effort. It does not ask planets to orbit it. They simply do. But there is one final, formidable question that the apologetic mind will scream in protest. What if I am genuinely wrong? What if I make a real mistake? Must I not apologize then? This is the last bastion of the slave morality. And to conquer it, we must embrace Nietzsche's most life-affirming and most challenging concept. Let us grant the premise. You have acted. You have made a choice. And the result is a disaster. You have hurt someone. You have failed spectacularly. You have made what any reasonable person would call a mistake. The conditioned response, the scream of the slave morality inside you, is overwhelming. Apologize. Grovel. Beg for forgiveness. Show them how sorry you are. This is the moment of truth. This is where the student of Nietzsche separates from the dabbler. The Übermensch, the sovereign individual, does not apologize in this moment. Not in the way the herd understands apology. To do so would be a betrayal of a far higher principle. Nietzsche gives us a formula for greatness in a human being, amor fati. Love of fate. It is the practice of looking at your life, every single moment of it, the triumphs and the catastrophes, the moments of glory and the moments of profound shame, and saying to it all, yes. I willed it thus. I would not have it any other way. And I would live it all again, and again, for all eternity. This is not a passive acceptance. It is an active, joyful embrace of your entire reality. It is the ultimate affirmation. Your mistakes are not alien viruses that infected your otherwise perfect life. They are you. They are integral, necessary, and inseparable parts of the path that forged you. To apologize for your mistakes, to wish they hadn't happened, is to wish that you were not who you are. It is to reject the very fabric of your own becoming. The slave morality wants you to see your mistakes as stains on your soul that must be washed clean with the holy water of apology. It wants you to feel guilt, shame, and a sense of being diminished. This keeps you weak. It keeps you indebted. The master morality, the philosophy of the Übermensch, sees a mistake differently. It is simply an outcome. An experiment that yielded an unexpected result. It is data. It is a lesson carved into your flesh. It is an opportunity for growth. So what does the sovereign individual do in the face of a genuine error? They take responsibility, but they do not apologize. These two things are not the same. In fact, they are opposites. Apology is often a way to avoid responsibility. It is a social transaction designed to smooth things over, to get you off the hook. You say the magic words, "I'm sorry," and you hope the consequences will disappear. It is an act of weakness. Taking responsibility is an act of supreme strength. It means acknowledging the reality, yes, my action led to this negative outcome. There is no denial, no excuse-making. Owning the consequences, I understand the impact this has had, and I will face whatever repercussions arise from it. This is about enduring the fallout without flinching. Integrating the lesson, this event has revealed a weakness or an ignorance in myself. I will use this knowledge to become stronger, wiser, and more effective. The mistake becomes fuel for the will to power. Notice what is missing? There is no self-flagellation. There is no, "Oh, I'm a terrible person." There is no begging for forgiveness. The sovereign individual does not seek absolution from others. Their absolution comes from their own amor fati, from the knowledge that this mistake was a necessary part of their ascent. They may seek to rectify the harm they caused, not out of guilt, but out of a position of strength and a desire to shape a better reality going forward. This is correction, not confession. This is a terrifying level of self-ownership. It means you can no longer hide behind the excuse of "I didn't mean to." Your intentions are irrelevant. Your actions are everything. You are the sum of your deeds, the glorious and the regrettable. To love your fate means to love it all. When you can stand amidst the wreckage of your own failure and, instead of apologizing for it, calmly begin to rebuild, stronger than before, then you have achieved a state of mind that is truly unbreakable. You have moved beyond good and evil. You have become a creator of values, a law unto yourself. We have journeyed into the dark heart of the human will. We began with a simple, pathetic word, sorry, and followed its roots down into the soil of a slave morality that has poisoned the West for 2 millennia. We have seen how this morality engineers your guilt, tames your spirit, and conditions you to beg for the right to exist. But we did not stay in the darkness. We have unearthed the hammer of Nietzsche's philosophy. The will to power as the engine of affirmation. The revaluation of all values as the blueprint for revolution. The sovereign presence as the sound of dominance. And amor fati as the ultimate, unbreakable shield. To stop apologizing is not a trick of body language or a new communication technique. It is a declaration of independence for your soul. It is a profound philosophical choice to live as a master of your own reality, not a slave to the expectations of others. The path from here is yours alone. It will be a path of fire. You will lose people. The herd does not take kindly to those who abandon it. They will call you arrogant. They will call you selfish. They will call you a monster. Let them. Their words are the death rattle of a dying morality. See these accusations not as insults, but as medals. They are proof that you are finally beginning to live. You will feel the temptation to retreat, to whisper just one more "I'm sorry" to quiet the storm. You must resist. You must stand in that storm, feel the wind and the rain, and learn to see it not as a punishment, but as the weather of your own ascent. The higher the mountain, the harsher the weather. The world does not need another polite, quiet, accommodating, and apologetic ghost. The world is choking on them. What the world needs, what life itself demands, are individuals of such terrifying integrity and self-possession that their very existence is an affirmation. Beings who do not apologize for the light they cast or the shadows they create. Beings who stand up straight and, with their whole life, make one single, deafening, unapologetic statement. The choice is now. Will you continue to be a footnote in someone else's story, a life defined by apologies? Or will you become the author of your own epic, or will that bend the world to it? If you have made your choice, if you are ready to kill the slave within and give birth to the sovereign, then make your first affirmation now. Write it in the comments below, not for me, but for you. A public declaration of your new law. Write, "I am my own law." Let the world know that a new will has awakened. And do not stop here. This journey is a war, and this was but the first battle. The next video is waiting. It is a necessary continuation of this path. To stop now is to surrender. Keep going. The peak of the mountain is still far away, and the view from there is worth every agonizing step. See you there.